I just want to geek out with my fellow internet audio nerds for a second, because at least to my ears, the audio in this video sounds studio quality. And that's remarkable because this audio is going directly into OBS. OBS is hearing the exact same audio that you are hearing right now. And if we look at my audio device's filters, we can see there are no plugins in OBS. No compressors, no EQ plugins, no nothing. OBS is hearing this exact audio. And that is all due to a really cool app that I just want to geek out about in this video. And to show you how cool it is, I'm going to open up the properties of my microphone in OBS and switch over to my hardware audio interface, this Volt 2. So this is what my audio actually sounds like going into the computer. And I've got a pretty good setup. There's a Sennheiser shotgun mic right there, just out of frame. We have a Volt 2 audio interface, which is pretty good. And the chain is even going through a hardware compressor called a DBX286, which I convinced myself I needed, and which is pretty cool. But still, you can tell that at least if you want that full audio sound like I want, there's a lot of extra work you have to do. And in my case, all I have to do, at least in terms of OBS, is choose this mic enhancer pass-through input device. So this is a virtual input device on my computer. If we open up my sound settings, we can actually see it in the list of all of my input devices. We've got the USB ones like the Volt 2 and the studio display, but then there's some virtual ones, including this one called mic enhancer pass-through. So essentially, I could pick this as my input device system-wide, and this audio would be what people would hear on OBS. It would be what people would hear on Zoom meetings, on Loom recordings of your screen. Literally anywhere you have input from your microphone going into an app, it would sound like this. So there is a combination of apps that allows this to happen. The first one is called Audio Hijack. And this is basically a Mac app that lets you bring in a hardware interface, and then you can pretty much build a chain of effects, or what they call blocks, and then you can have an output or maybe even multiple outputs at the end of the chain. So you can see here, I've got my actual audio interface, the Volt 2, as my input device, and then I'm running it through a series of blocks that I'm going to cover in just a second. And then I've got this output device over here called Mic Enhancer Pass-Through. Now this is created by another app from the same developer. I think it's Rogue Amoeba, called Loopback. And Loopback essentially allows you to do all sorts of different audio routing on your Mac. And what I've got here is a virtual device called Mic Enhancer Pass-Through. It is taking in the output from Audio Hijack, and then it is creating an actual input device on my computer. So it is as if it's another audio interface plugged into the computer, but it's all created in software. So this is the piece that actually allows me to plug that input device into any other app I'm using, like OBS. But the most important piece is Audio Hijack itself, because it is what allows me to apply effects to the input signal from my Volt 2. So this is the chain that I've constructed. I'm very proud of my chain, and this is why I'm making this video, because as a nerd, I've built something and now must show it off on the internet. So they have this cool little speech denoise block that comes with the app. I've got that on there, and if I stop talking, it turns off. Of course, I never stop talking, so it almost never turns off. But if there were like a leaf blower outside or something like that, this would help to cut that out when I'm not speaking. And then I'm also running this into RX7 Voice Denoise, which is a plugin from the iZotope RX7 Audio Repair Suite. That is a very expensive plugin, and I bought it like 6 or 7 years ago when I was really into both music production and like cinematic YouTube videos. So I don't think I would buy this today, but it is quite nice to have in the chain. And as part of the research I've been doing on this whole setup, I did come across quite a few other plugins that do sort of the same thing. There's one called DX Revive. There's one called Clear from Plugin Boutique. There's one called Clarity from Waves. There's even a free and open source one. There's like a machine learning or neural network thing called RN Noise. And someone on GitHub has made an actual VST plugin for RN Noise. So I know a lot of streamers actually use this one, and it's completely free. I would just kind of leave it up to other people to test them out. But I digress. After we do that whole voice denoise step, we've got Neutron 3, which is another iZotope plugin. And this essentially allows me to create just like the bulk of the effects that would go to sweetening my voice. I have a gate in this chain, which is honestly kind of useless. It's from a preset that I used earlier, but speech denoise is doing most of the gate's work. As you can see, there's not a whole lot of spikes here on the gate. I've got a compressor, which helps to just sort of shrink the band of dynamic range for my voice. This is what allows me to get really quiet and almost do like ASMR type speech or like a little Bob Ross kind of thing. But it also allows me to get really, really loud like this. And it doesn't really sound all that different in terms of harshness or being overwhelming. The compressor helps to contribute to that. I also have a limiter on the end of the chain, which ensures that the signal can never go over -3 decibels out of this plugin. We also have an equalizer. This is what helps to sort of shape the character of the voice. If I turned it off, I would sound like this, which some people might prefer, but I tend to prefer this more like radio style, deeper, classic V shape on my EQs. And that then goes into an instance of RX-7's de-esser. There's probably a de-esser in here that comes with it. I haven't checked. And there's tons of free de-essers, but I think RX-7 has a really, really nice de-esser. And I already had the plugin from my music production days, so I threw it into the chain. I've got a little bit of monitoring here. I can verify that we are limiting to -3 decibels, and I've got VUs just for fun. They look cool. It's kind of like having the old school VUs on a rack mounted piece of hardware. And then of course it goes into our output device, which then goes into loopback. And that's what creates that really cool virtual device in OBS that I can choose as my microphone, as it were. So just wanted to make this video for any other fellow Mac audio nerds who are hoping to improve their audio quality. I find this really cool primarily so that when I shoot YouTube videos, the audio in the raw footage that I give to my editor is perfect, which means my editor doesn't have to have the same ear that I have, and they also don't have to have the same expensive suite of plugins for audio production that I've accumulated over the years. They just have perfect, pristine audio and don't have to touch any audio effects whatsoever. But the other nice ancillary benefit is that if I'm recording a quick and dirty loom, or even a quicker and dirtier like clean shot video, or if I'm doing a meeting like on Google Meet or Slack huddles, I sound just like this all the time, which I think is pretty cool. So if you're also on Mac and you're trying to improve your audio quality, hopefully you found this helpful. I'm not sure if there's a Windows alternative for plugins like this. If there are, let me know in the comments or replies or wherever this video is posted. But beyond that, thanks for hanging out with me and nerding out about audio gear, and I'll see you in whatever next video I make.